Thank you for checking out this video. I hope you enjoy the following stories. In the heart of winter, I found myself on a solo road trip through the desolate countryside. The snow falling heavily around me and a blizzard closing in. I had underestimated the intensity of the storm, and now I found myself driving through a relentless whiteout blizzard. My car surrounded by an impenetrable wall of snow. With every mile I covered, the visibility diminished, and the road became treacherous. Panic gnawed at my nerves, but I had no choice but to press on. My cell phone had no signal, and I was miles away from any civilization. As the snowstorm intensified, I noticed the road ahead leading into a thick forest. The dark, imposing trees seemed to whisper a warning, but I had no other option but to follow the road blindly. With every passing minute, the blizzard enveloped my car in an eerie silence. The only sound I could hear was the relentless wind, howling like a mournful creature. I drove on, my hands gripping the steering wheel tightly, my knuckles turning white. Fear had taken hold of me, and I could feel the weight of isolation and vulnerability. Then, in the distance, a faint light caught my eye. It was like a beacon of hope in the midst of the snowstorm. As I approached, I saw an old, weathered cabin standing defiantly against the elements, desperate for shelter and warmth. I parked my car in front of the cabin and rushed inside. The cold seemed to cling to my skin, but the relief of being out of the blizzard was overwhelming. The cabin was musty, with creaky floorboards and tattered curtains that danced in the wind. It appeared abandoned, but I didn't care. I was grateful for any form of refuge. I tried to find a signal on my phone, hoping to call for help or check the weather forecast, but it was futile. The blizzard had cut off all connection to the outside world. As the night wore on, the storm showed no signs of abating. The wind seemed to grow angrier, and the snow pelted against the cabin's windows like an army of tiny soldiers. In the dim light, I noticed an old diary resting on a dusty shelf. Curiosity got the better of me, and I began to read the handwritten pages. The diary belonged to a woman who once lived in the cabin. She spoke of isolation, of being trapped in the snowstorm, and of strange occurrences in the forest. As I read, a chill ran down my spine. The entries became more cryptic, speaking of an otherworldly presence and an entity that lurked in the blizzard. Fear consumed me, and I began to feel as if I was not alone in the cabin. It was as if the blizzard itself held a malevolent force, watching me from outside the windows. I tried to dismiss my irrational thoughts, attributing them to the stress of the situation. But then I heard a soft knocking on the cabin door. My heart pounded, and I summoned the courage to open it. But there was nothing there, just a wall of snow and darkness. The knocking persisted, growing louder and more urgent. Panic set in, and I could feel the weight of an unseen presence in the cabin. In my desperation, I decided to leave the cabin and return to my car. Maybe the blizzard had subsided, or maybe someone had come looking for me. But as I stepped outside, I was met with a wall of snow. The blizzard was stronger than ever, and I found myself trapped between the cabin's eerie presence and the relentless storm. I returned to the cabin, defeated and filled with dread. The knocking continued, and I could hear faint whispers on the wind. In the dim light, the pages of the diary seemed to blur, and I wondered if I had stumbled into a nightmare. A place where the blizzard held more than just snow and wind. As the night dragged on, I huddled in the corner of the cabin, my mind tormented by the haunting whispers and the knocking on the door. Morning finally arrived, and with it came the faint light of daybreak. The blizzard had subsided, and the world outside the cabin was a serene winter wonderland with a sense of relief and exhaustion. I left the cabin behind, promising myself never to return, but the memory of that night in the blizzard haunted me, a reminder that some places hold secrets, and the elements themselves can be forces beyond our understanding. It was a dark and stormy night when my friends, Kate, Mark, and I, decided to take a road trip to explore an abandoned mansion rumored to be haunted. The mansion stood at the edge of a desolate forest, a relic of a forgotten past, and we couldn't resist the allure of its mysterious history. As we approached the mansion, the storm intensified, rain pounding relentlessly on the car roof. Lightning illuminated the sky, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance around the mansion's imposing facade. Undeterred, we parked the car and ventured into the mansion, flashlights in hand. The air inside was heavy with the scent of decay and old memories. Cobwebs adorned the corners, and the wooden floorboards creaked beneath our feet. Kate, always intrigued by the supernatural, led the way as we explored the mansion's darkened rooms. The storm outside seemed to amplify the mansion's eerie atmosphere. We couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. As we ascended a creaky staircase, we heard the faint echo of a child's laughter. Our hearts raced, and we exchanged fearful glances. "It must be the wind," Mark whispered, trying to convince us and himself that it was nothing more. But the laughter persisted, growing louder and more unsettling with each step we took. It was as if the mansion itself was taunting us, pulling us deeper into its chilling embrace. We reached the top of the staircase and found ourselves in a narrow hallway, dimly lit by the flickering glow of our flashlights. The laughter now seemed to come from all directions, surrounding us like a malevolent presence. As we cautiously made our way down the hallway, the laughter ceased, replaced by an eerie silence that made our skin crawl. Suddenly, the temperature dropped and we could see our breaths in the cold air. Kate suggested we turn back, but curiosity got the better of us. We pressed on, drawn by an unseen force that seemed to defy reason. At the end of the hallway, we found a room with a partially open door. Inside, a pale light emanated, casting a haunting glow that illuminated the dust particles dancing in the air. We approached the room, our hearts pounding in anticipation. The laughter now sounded distant, like an echo from the past, and a feeling of sorrow washed over us. As we stepped inside, we saw a scene that sent chills down our spines. A child's room, frozen in time. Toys lay scattered on the floor, and a small bed was neatly made, as if waiting for its young occupant to return. But there was something more. A spectral figure, a childlike apparition, standing in the corner of the room. It was translucent, its features indistinct yet unmistakably human. The child's laughter returned, but this time it was accompanied by a sense of longing and sadness. We could feel the weight of its presence, as if it wanted to share its story with us. Terrified and mesmerized, we listened to the child's laughter and felt an overwhelming sense of empathy. The apparition seemed trapped, unable to move on from this place and time. In a sudden burst of courage, Kate reached out to touch the apparition, and it dissipated like smoke. As we left the mansion, the storm had subsided, and the air felt heavy with emotion. We knew we had encountered something beyond explanation. A lost soul, lingering in the darkness, seeking solace from the living. We never spoke of that night again, but the memory haunted us, a reminder that the line between the living and the dead is often blurred. The abandoned mansion had held secrets and echoes of the past, leaving an indelible mark on our souls. The blizzard raged outside as my friends Anna, David, and I huddled together in a small, isolated cabin deep in the snowy wilderness. The wind howled like a banshee, and the snow pummeled the windows, creating an impenetrable wall between us and the outside world. We had planned a winter retreat in this remote cabin to enjoy the beauty of the snow-covered landscape. But as the storm intensified, we began to regret our decision. The cabin creaked under the assault of the blizzard, and the walls seemed to shudder with each gust of wind. The cold seeped in, and we huddled closer to the fireplace, seeking warmth and comfort as the night descended a sense of unease. We tried to distract ourselves with games and stories, but the howling wind and the isolation weighed heavily on our minds. Anna glanced at the window, her face pale as she said, "I thought I saw something moving outside." David and I exchanged worried glances. The idea of anything lurking in the blizzard was terrifying, but we brushed it off as a trick of the light. But the feeling of being watched lingered, and Anna's unease spread to all of us. Each time we looked out the window, we saw nothing but the swirling snow and darkness beyond. As the night wore on, the storm showed no signs of abating. The isolation weighed on our spirits, and the blizzard intensified our fear. And then the unthinkable happened. We heard a soft knock on the cabin door. The sound was barely audible above the howling wind. We froze, exchanging terrified glances. No one should be out in this storm, and we hadn't seen any other cabins nearby. David, the bravest among us, slowly approached the door. He hesitated, his hand trembling as he reached for the handle. The knocking grew louder. With a deep breath, he flung open the door. But there was no one there. Just a wall of snow and darkness. The blizzard seemed to mock us, playing tricks on our senses. Relieved, we closed the door, chalking it up to our imaginations. But as we settled back by the fireplace, the knocking returned, stronger and more insistent. This time, Anna was the one to open the door. And once again, nothing greeted her. The knocks persisted, growing louder and more haunting with each repetition. Panic settled in, and we questioned whether the storm was bringing more than just snow and wind. Anna suggested that perhaps someone was lost out there, seeking shelter from the storm. But David and I knew better. We were miles away from civilization, and no one in their right mind would be wandering in this blizzard. As the night dragged on, we heard other sounds. Soft whispers carried by the wind, like voices in the distance. They were barely audible, but they sent shivers down our spines. The blizzard showed no signs of stopping, and we felt trapped in the relentless storm. Finally, with fear gripping our hearts, we made a decision. We would leave the cabin at first light, no matter how treacherous the storm. We couldn't bear another moment of the haunting knocks and whispers that seemed to echo in the blizzard's fury. Morning arrived, and the storm began to wane. We gathered what little courage we had left and stepped outside. But what we found sent terror coursing through our veins. There, in the freshly fallen snow, were footprints leading away from the cabin. Footprints that seemed to appear out of nowhere, leading into the heart of the blizzard. We didn't stay to investigate. With a newfound strength, we fled from the cabin, never looking back. To this day, we can't explain what happened that night. A night haunted by more than just the blizzard's fury. It's a memory that lingers, a reminder that there are forces beyond our understanding, and some things are best left to the mysteries of the storm. Thanks for watching and joining us on this spooky journey. Don't forget to subscribe for more bone-chilling content. Stay brave, stay curious, and until next time, sweet nightmares.